tuning in live or catching the replay, today we're diving into something every parent thinks about: toys. But not just any toys. We're talking about the kind that truly support your child's development.
Well, we've both seen how easy it is to feel overwhelmed by toys. I mean, hello. And how much pressure there is to give children, like the best starts or the latest gizmo. There's so much pressure to it. So today we just want to offer a different way of thinking about toys and play spaces. Okay, so one that is simpler, calmer, and much more aligned with how young children actually learn. So it's the same playtime, different future.
So let's start by talking about something that might surprise you. What if fewer toys meant better play? So as we know, most homes, as we've just said, are full of toys. You might even look at your play space and think, oh my gosh, it's like a toy store. So gifts, trends, hand-me-downs, they all somehow build up. And yet children say, I'm bored. Sound familiar? So there was this really fascinating study conducted by the University of Toledo. So 36 toddlers aged 18 to 30 months were put into two different groups, and one group was given 4 toys and the other group was given 16 toys. So what they found, which is fascinating, is with the 4 toys, the children had longer play times, they played more creatively, and they found different ways of using each toy. Whereas with the 16 toys, the play was scattered, there was less focus, and there was a lot more distraction. So basically, the upshot of this study was that fewer toys equal deeper cognitive development. And fewer toys boosts imagination, problem solving, self-expression, fine motor skills, and self-regulation. So it's not about having more. It's much more, as Lucy and I always like to say, it's more of a less is more approach, which helps kids go deeper into their play.
Amanda, I was just thinking about, like this whole thing about like play spaces. And I work with so many families whose play spaces are literally a toy store, like you just said.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like sometimes children, they're too young to actually voice that they're bored, but you can tell by their actions that that is just not doing it for them. Right. And the thing is, like, I see so many families, like those big boxes from usually
like the toy bin.
Yeah, and they're like, they just dump everything on the floor because it's the best way for them to put toys away, right? For adults, especially. Once they dump everything on the floor, the child just feels almost like immediately overwhelmed.
Yeah. And if you think about kind of like from the parents' point of view as well, it's like, how easier would actually putting toys away if there was kind of like less toys in the room to start with, right? So
and I think it's because like parents, like us adults, like we always try to find like ways to optimize the space. So we tend to think the other way around, as in like, how much can I actually fit into each space? And that's actually, it just goes against our nature and children's nature as well. So it's funny because like whenever we're organizing a space, thinking more like in like a Montessori at home kind of way, when you look at the space and there's like this big cube like this, and you only have like a small tray with one toy, it almost looks like a wasted space. But actually for the child, this is exactly what they need. So you can clearly tell like the huge difference between a space that you see out there in like millions and millions of homes all over the world, where there's like so many toys just like stuffed into like cupboards and shelves and the whole thing. In, like in contrast with a Montessori inspired space. I'm not even saying, you know, like it doesn't need to be like 100% Montessori, but like just the inspiration of it, just knowing that, you know, like less is more, that, you know, like that, just having like a handful of options, obviously like always very age appropriate, works, and it does a so much better job than just having all the options in the world all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like, Lucy, I was thinking about this the other day. It's a little bit like going to a restaurant, right? Like for us, and you get a menu and you have got so many different options on it. And it's like,
decision fatigue. Decision fatigue.
Exactly. Now, if you think about it, we've got fully formed prefrontal cortexes, and still I end up either choosing the same thing, or I'm like
100%. Yeah, it's like I'm just gonna go with the safe option.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a really interesting way to think about it from a kind of adult perspective, is that, you know, too many options can be overwhelming. So we really want to kind of like narrow, and this is what this study is actually showing us, that actually we want our child to get into that flow state if possible, because that's really where the magic happens. And so less options equals deeper play, as we've said.
And just one last thing, because obviously, like, you know, like we're talking about households, we're talking about family homes that have, you know, like 1 child, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5, right? But if I was thinking, like, I was looking back into my teaching days, and I don't know if you've noticed that, Amanda, when you were teaching as well, did you notice that the same children would always go to the same toys? They would always go to the same activities. They, you know, like they already had their favorites.
Yeah.
Like as if nothing else in the room, none of the other resources would speak to them. I'm talking here, everyone, like about more like mainstream schools, you know, that had like all the blocks and all the, you know, like all the puzzles and, you know, the whole thing, like in early years. And I remember it's like I always had that one child who would always go for the Play-Doh. I always had that one child who would always go for the blocks. I always had that one child who would always go for the puzzles. And it wouldn't really change, right? Unless you were inviting them, you know, to it, and, you know, just really showing them that there's, hey, you know what, this can actually be interesting as well. Or else they would just naturally be drawn to those same activities until obviously like they would master it, and then they would change.
I think it's worth just adding in here as well that, you know, if you are looking to kind of create more sort of independent play with your child, is really, you know, we come back to the kind of whole Montessori adage of following the child's interests. And so, you know, when you are thinking about what are those toys that I should be putting out, if I am only choosing 4 to 6 toys, you know, just observe for a week and see what toys your child gravitates towards, because if they are still using the same toy, it's probably because they have an inner need to use that toy or master a certain skill. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, like, it's also worth remembering that kids would rather be included than distracted. Okay. So like us as adults, again, like we have that tendency of thinking, oh my God, I really need to give that child so many toys because I've got so much to do in my life. I really need to make sure that they're being distracted and entertained and just, you know, kind of like pretty much out of my way so I can get things done. Right. But the thing is, it's actually the other way around. So like if you live in a home, in a family home, and you've got a few children, you know, like in your family, you actually have yourself your own little team, which is really cool. So everyone's got like beautiful pair of hands. And this is something that I always tell the families I work with. If your child can grasp, they can help.
Absolutely.
They actually love helping.
They want to help. Yeah.
They want to help. And to be perfectly honest, chores, they only have a negative connotation to us adults. And we need to be very, very mindful of not actually giving children this negative connotation as well, because they love doing chores. I know some people are laughing at me right now. It's fine, I'm good. But that's the truth, isn't it? Children love being involved in it. So whether it's, you know, like doing the dishes, unloading the dishwasher, whether it's doing the laundry or washing the floor or wiping a table, sweeping the floor, hoovering. Obviously, like, if the hoover is not very noisy and very loud, because it can be very scary to a few children.
Or very big, yeah.
But, there's so much, seriously, in our everyday lives that we can start involving children in. And again, it's not just involving them for the sake of involving them. We are here to build life skills. And Montessori, at the end of the day, I was asked the other day, like, how do you sum up Montessori? I said, like, education for life.
Absolutely.
This is Montessori. At least, like, to me, this is how I can sum it up. Montessori is education for life. So how can you educate this child in a practical way for them to thrive in life?
So, Lucy,
no better way. Just get them involved.
So I was going to say, because you I know you have a sort of favorite material that you often kind of, suggest parents get. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So actually, I'm not only going to talk about that, but I'm also going to show you guys. It's a learning tower. So hopefully some of you guys already know what a learning tower is. And for those who don't, this is it. So it's a beautiful like piece of furniture that actually doubles down as a little table. And this learning tower, I know it looks a bit bulky, and it kind of is, okay, but it's fine. We'll make our peace with it. But this learning tower, it just enables a child to be an integral part of your everyday life, especially in the kitchen. So by giving the child by allowing them to have the same height as you, they can actually reach the worktop and really be part of food prepping, of washing the dishes, of, like maybe cooking something special with you. So, this truly is a game changer. And these learning towers, they are out there for you guys to buy. We are not being sponsored by anyone, but this is one from learningtowers.co.uk. So it's obviously, like available here in the UK. And if you are in any other countries, I'm not too sure whether this website actually, like ships internationally. Hopefully they do, but I'm sure you can find something similar in your country. And the thing is, this learning tower, it gives little ones a safe way to reach counter height. Okay, so they can 100% get involved in everyday moments. Like I said, like washing veggies, like stirring pancake batter, like meal prepping, even preparing their own lunchbox. Look at this. And a child as little as a toddler, maybe as young as 18 months, or sometimes even younger, depending on your child, they can already start being part of it. So there's so many benefits to it. Obviously, I'm not going to stay here like talking for hours on end on the learning tower. I'm just it's like, hey everyone, believe me, just trust me on this one. If you have a toddler in your life, buy a learning tower. I promise you, it's the best investment you ever make. It's a learning tower. But obviously, as a prepared space needs to come with a prepared adult as well. It's a matter of understanding how to involve this child when it comes to using the learning tower as well. So it's funny, Amanda, because I had the other day this client who's a dad of 2 children, and then I told him, like, look, just talking to him about the importance of involving children, especially in meal prep. And he said, like, oh no, I already involved them in like preparing meals and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Can you just show me like what it looks like? And it was like, oh yeah, no, I tell them like to get this, get that, cut this, cut that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's, like you're actually just telling them what to do.
Oh, well, the intention was there.
Yeah, but he was kind of like saying, oh yeah, like done this, didn't really work.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
I think also that, children of toddler age, especially, are very much in a kind of process way of learning. So it's not going to necessarily look pretty. Okay.
No, so it's going to be messy.
Exactly. So you've got to kind of give up that expectation of it's going to be looking perfect, but you're just going to see that sense of joy and accomplishment on their faces when they do get involved and can actually contribute to the family meal time. So yeah, give it a go.
And the thing is, especially, sorry, but just like to add one final thing to it, if you have a picky eater,
yes,
I'm not going to say anything, but try to involve them in not only preparing the meal, but also creating a shopping list, doing the groceries. So please, if if you can, just avoid doing online shopping and actually take your child to the grocery store. There is an infinite world of possibilities and like curiosity and interesting things for children to explore at the grocery store. So please do not miss out on this.
and
And you see, if the child is part of all the steps.
If we also take it back to the fact that children are sensorial learners as well, there is nothing better than the kitchen for kind of, bringing in all the senses. So, but let's take the conversation back to toys, because like I was in the shop, The Entertainer, the other day, and obviously the name of the shop kind of gives it away, but if looking at toys, so many of them are designed to entertain. So you press a button, lights flash, music plays, they're kind of toys that actually get really annoying after a while for the adult. And the child just watches. It's like it's passive. So the toy does the work, not the child. But young children don't need more bells, whistles, singing, dancing, horses. They need opportunities to explore, and to use their hands and minds together, because that's where the magic happens. Montessori always says that the hand is the instrument of man's intelligence. So if you can get them using their hands, that is actually growing their brain. So rather than being creators of their own play with a lot of these toys, children can easily slip into the role of sort of a consumer or like a spectator. It's a bit like us when we zone out when we're scrolling through our phones. Something's happening, but we're not really doing the thinking, imagining, or creating. We're consuming content, right?
Yeah. And again, like that's a whole other ball game that we, like obviously, like we're not going to discuss this right now, but it does affect brain development in a way that is way deeper than we can possibly imagine. And like when we talk about toys that are so passive that children are just there watching, it's not like that child is going to watch that toy, like work for like hours on end. Sometimes the child literally just looks at it for like 10 seconds and then they just lose interest. So, like just really do consider something that is going to hold your child's attention for a bit longer, and that is going to build their brain in constructive ways. I
was just going to say as well, what's really interesting is actually if you say put a beautiful, say, wooden toy next to, say, something that is a bit
very
more
plasticky and
plastic and dancey, it's almost like the junk food of the toy world. So your child probably will gravitate to that. If it is in the environment, your child probably will gravitate to that first. So it is about kind of curating the environment and making sure that the options we give our child, like we give them, we decide what nutrients we're going to give them, what food we're going to give them, are really nutritious. And as Lucy said, brain development, children's brains are growing at an extraordinary rate, faster than any other time in their lives. And by the time a child turns 5, their brain has already reached about 90% of an adult size.
So we actually have like a very, very short image just to show you guys like what that looks like. So let me just try and put this here on the stage. Bear with me. Oh, there you go. So yeah, so like this is a child's, this is basically like what a 5-year-old looks like, right? And obviously they were just born the other day. But the thing is, that child's brain is already 90% fully formed compared to the adult size. And as we know, the brain is fully developed roughly at the age of 25. So if you look at like this progress bar, it takes 5 years, only 5 years, for it to be like 90% complete. However, just like that final 10%, it takes an extra 20 years to be fully developed. So that's why it is so important for us to really, truly take the early years as seriously as possible. Because as you can see, and that is science, science has proven that this is the time when the brain is the most developed. By the age of 5, it's almost nearly there. It's like 90% fully formed. So, like we can't really deny science. So please, if you are watching us, please take your child's early years as seriously as possible, because this is when the biggest changes actually happen. So yeah, and like this is a period that it's just full of sensitive windows for like things like language, emotional development, sensory processing, motor coordination, and so much more. So like every one of these connections that they make, every problem that these children solve, even something as simple as balancing blocks, or maybe everything, it just wires the brain in so many powerful ways. And obviously, like children, they're so cute at this age. So like we can see out there like this boom of toddlers and younger children. But remember that these are not just cute moments that you want to share on Instagram, okay? These are actually essential building blocks for lifelong learning, creativity, and resilience. Never forget about resilience.
Absolutely. And I think that, this doesn't mean obviously all battery operated toys are bad. And I remember, one of my favorite toys as a child was Speak and Spell. And I think Speak and Maths as well, So, and it's definitely not about blame. It's just that most of us buy these toys with the best of intentions. We want to delight our kids, support their learning. And sometimes, as we said, just keep them safely occupied so we can get through the day. But it is worth stepping back and asking, is this toy inviting my child to think, to explore, to imagine, or is it doing all the work for them? So it isn't about getting rid of everything with a button. It's just about shifting the balance and making room for toys that let the child lead.
Yeah, and that's why we talk also like not only about battery powered play, but also about child powered play. So child powered toys are like the kind that run on imagination and movement and problem solving instead of batteries and screens. So these toys, they invite children to do, to create, to think, and not to just sit back and watch passively. So, you can think about blocks, building blocks, magnet tiles, art materials, animal figurines, play silks, Play-Doh. Oh my God, I am a sucker for Play-Doh. Even until today, I love Play-Doh. But like all of these open-ended toys, they don't come with a script, which is great. So children actually get to decide what they are and how they're used. And that's where deep and creative play begins. Of course, it's not either or. So like closed-ended toys only or open-ended toys only. So like all of these toys, they have their place too. Just things like puzzles. So they have like a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. And this supports skills like concentration, fine motor coordination, and self-mastery. And the best thing is like there's no adult involvement needed. And that is really important for the child to actually learn how to do it by themselves. They make their mistakes, they correct it, and they try again.
Yeah, and I think, going back to kind of what matters is the balance. So, and how much room the toy gives the child to lead the play. So child-powered toys, like we like to say, leave the story open so your child can write it themselves over and over and over again. And I actually just want to show one of my favorite open-ended toys. They're called Flockmen. And I don't know if you can see back here, I have lots of little men. Can you see those, Lucy?
Can you just bring like some of these closer to the screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are like little wooden men, and they come in bags of 59, I think, and 35. And there is just so much you can do with them. They are made from sustainable wood. Again, I'm not being sponsored by Flockmen. And you can sort with them, you can build with them, you can play with people with them. You can build monuments, bridges. They can be whatever you want them to be. So that is just an example of an open-ended toy, which just allows for your child to discover and explore. So yeah, they're available obviously online.
Yeah, and remember, I think that like the most important thing, just like before we finish this live stream, is to remember that toys, like using toys, is just part of this child's life. It's just part of their everyday. But I still am such a truly believer that, you know, involving your child in your everyday life, it goes a long way. And like, you know, a child who's constantly busy in a positive way, I don't think they'll ever say I'm bored.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Right?
point.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say a little bit more research that open-ended play supports executive function skills. So research by Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows that play that is child-directed and open-ended supports the development of executive function skills and their planning, focus, problem solving, and flexible thinking. And if you think about it, these are really the foundational skills that every child needs for success in school and life. So that's another reason why open-ended toys are so fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. And like, remember, it's not just about the toys or materials. The environment itself also plays a huge role in how children engage. But rather than just like squeeze that in now, we're going to give it some time, and the time that it actually deserves. So we are going to bring part 2 of Play with Purpose in a future live stream. And we're going to explore the hidden benefits of an intentionally designed space. And we're going to break down the what, the why, and the how of toy rotation, which so many people haven't heard of. And this is going to be a game changer in your life, I promise you. So you don't want to miss it. It's actually one of the most powerful and often overlooked ways to support deeper and more meaningful play at home. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys so much for watching us, for taking your time to be here and learn a little bit more with us.
Thank you so much, guys. And we have a special guest on in 2 weeks' time. So we'll be telling you more about that. So look out for us in the socials, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. And we hope you got some value from this. And we look forward to chatting with you in 2 weeks. Have a great couple of weeks.
Have a great one. I'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.